Braden Urbacher was a young 20-year-old motocross racer from Queensland who loved racing his bike and loved playing his guitar. His younger brother Damon and dad Ash are both MX racers and just your typical happy-go-lucky moto family. Braden was tragically taken from his family and wider motocross community back at round 1 in Wonthaggi during a racing accident. On behalf of ProMX and the entire motocross paddock, our thoughts, prayers and condolences go out to the Urbacher family and all of Braden's close friends. We dedicate today's telecast and today's racing to the memory of number 59, Braden Urbacher.
Hello and welcome to round 2 of the Penrite ProMX Championship presented by AMX Superstores. We have arrived an hour south of Sydney, surrounded by gorgeous national park in the historic town of Appin, home to a technical quality motocross track that many are excited to revisit on this calendar. Hi, I'm Kate Peck and with me is 11-time national motocross champion Lee Hogan. Hogs, we have a massive day of racing ahead of us, but there are still so many unanswered questions in the stacked MX1 class.
Yeah, look, MX1, round 1, we saw a little bit of the speed from these guys. All the big hitters were going exceptionally hard. Super impressed with all of them. It didn't look like anyone rocked up unprepared, shall we say. All 8, 9 of them going exceptionally fast.
Now, we weren't able to see race pace, obviously, but somebody who did show us some serious speed was Boost Mobile Honda Racing's Jed Beaton.
Yeah, look, Jed hadn't had the best of off-seasons. He'd been getting shown a clean set of heels from his teammate Cole Webster at a couple of races. However, he came out firing at Wonthaggi round 1 of ProMX. Now, he was fastest in the pole shootout, and he did it quite easily. He didn't look like he was riding on the ragged edge, so very impressed with Jed. And on to MX2, where another Honda rider took out the win for Moto1, Wilson Todd, but it wasn't without controversy. Wow, we had all kinds of carnage going on in that first MX2 race, that's for sure. We had a staggered start, restart of the race, but yeah, look, I'm going to say that my initial response was Crawford's penalty was pretty hard, losing all of his points for Moto1 as well as a fine. But as the week went on, started to find out more and more information and found out the final bits of information yesterday, so we were right across it for the commentary. So a little more on that later, but yeah, I think a little bit on the harsh side for Nathan Crawford. Well, Hogs, I hope you brought your sunscreen because it is going to be a scorcher, 39 degrees today. But before we get into the racing, let's take a look at the Appin motocross track that we have ahead for us today with yourself and the one and only Danny Ham.
It's been around 4 years since we've been to Appin for a national level race, and anyone that was here in 2019 will know just how bad it was. It was an absolute mud pit. Complete polar opposite here today. We have beautiful sun, the clear skies, and that in effect is also going to play against these riders this week, and we will touch on that later on. But right now, the track itself for this Michelin track preview is showing us a beautiful surface right now. They have thrown plenty of water into the track, but there's a few key factors that are going to play into it. And it starts right here on the start line. You can see right here on the start that the riders themselves are going to have to deal with a dirt start. Now, the ground itself is so rock hard. You can see it right here. And that is going to be the surface that these riders are having to face when they go out there. Their ruts, although they're going to be deep, are going to be very hard and slippery. So they'll be searching for some nice soft dirt. The other thing is the position on the start line. All the way out here on the outside, you have to travel around about 15 metres further to get to the inside for the first turn. So you do not want to be out there. The same on the other side of the track. Right to the inside, you actually have to turn right before you turn left. You're going to get pinched out really bad as you go through there. So the ideal position that you want to be in right here is these 10 or so gates right in the middle of the track. You've got the 5 on the inside, the 5 back to here. If you can do that, you can get yourself a nice straight line down into that first turn, hopefully get there first.
There's so many cool things to talk about here at the Appin motocross track.
we've got dirt that quite possibly forms some of the best straight line and corner ruts that we'll see throughout the whole series. We're also in a little bit of an amphitheatre style shape here where the spectators can see basically everything. It's awesome viewing. But for me personally, my favourite part to this track for 2023 is this brand new triple jump. It is 30 metres stepped out. Now that's bigger than any triple you'll find on a Supercross track around the world. Not just here, we've got another triple 30 metres of distance on the far side of the track, going up the biggest of the uphills. But all I know is whoever had the final say in track design here for 2023 had some serious airtime in mind.
The final thing that the riders have to deal with this weekend is simply the track surface. Now you can see underneath us right now that it has a lot of water being thrown down into it for good reason. You can see how clumpy, how sticky this dirt is right now, and this is going to affect the bikes as well. They'll become very, very heavy underneath the riders and difficult to ride as well, especially if you're on these 250s where you have a bit of a less powerful bike. The other thing is simply the weather above us. It is hot right now, and it's even hotter tomorrow. 39 degrees is the predicted temperature, and that there is going to dry this track out a lot. It's going to bake in, it's going to become hard. There will be ruts everywhere. This is going to be a technical track, one of those tracks where the riders will really have to take their time to make sure they get around here cleanly. And finally, of course, the elevation. Now, it's not as aggressive as what we'll see later in the championship, but we are riding up and down hills. It makes a beautiful amphitheatre, as Lee said, for the spectators that come out here and watch this race live on the day. And that there gives you a great example of how this track will form up in this week's Michelin Track Preview.
Well, Danny Ham, what a track we have got here at Appin. Looks a little bit different today to when we did the track preview yesterday. They have put a massive amount of water down on this track this morning.
Yeah, it's a bit night and day to what we saw yesterday. A lot of water thrown down, so conditions actually, surprisingly, very muddy earlier on. But let's get straight into it with the Thor. MX1 line up for Moto #1. Dean Ferris topped the list out of Super Pole. Very fast. Jed Beaton was quick too. Kirk Gibbs looks strong. Carl Webster, Aaron Tanti. Massive amount of names in that.
Matt Moss, Brett Metcalf, Hamish Harwood. It was Jed Beaton who came out on top of the pole shootout. What an amazing job. Spectacular ride for him on that machine.
As we go down a few more riders, Zachary Watson's back there. I did see a few other ones that are notable with Regan Duffy, the 72 machine. He is back out there as well. And it's going to be tough for all of these riders. We just got a chance to walk around a lunch break. It's hot out there.
It is sweltering. I think we're tipping around 39 degrees at the moment, Danny Ham. The riders are feeling the heat, and we've seen in our earlier races today, the riders have been coming in trying to cool themselves down. We are in the starters' hands for the Thor MX1 Moto #1 here at Appin. Who is going to get that all-important hole shot? Oh, we've had a rider gone down, and there is a massive amount of riders down in that first turn.
Dean Ferris has escaped the carnage and he's put himself straight into the lead. Cloud is down. Is that Beaton or is that Webster?
That is one of the two Honda riders, the Boost Honda riders, and we'll try to pick up who that is.
I think it could have been maybe one or both of them. They're not showing up at the top end of our scoring right here as we see Moss there in second. Dylan Wood, the privateer on the Honda, he's there in third as well according to our scoring. As we take a quick look back, there is Wood. Oh, Wood, the 62 machine, off track after a great excursion. There is Tanti.
Tanti is
and
well back.
Wood.
Wood has gone down. Dean Ferris has already got himself a nice handy little gap over Matt Moss.
So Tanti, which we saw on screen, which you're looking at right now, was around about that 10th position. So these guys got plenty of work ahead of them. Can you believe the start that Ferris has got himself out into? And Matt Moss returning to motocross. He's done a successful season last year in Supercross, spent some time in America getting some great results. Didn't intend to race motocross this year. However, the opportunity came up and he's jumped at it.
Couple of big names back there in third and fourth with Kirk Gibbs and Todd Waters. And Danny, you spoke a little earlier about how fast Kirk Gibbs was looking in qualifying.
this track, as the sun bakes it even more and it starts to get a little bit blue groove, it's really going to come into its own for Kirk Gibbs.
So, a couple of things I want to point out right now, compared to what we saw earlier on, and a reason for that first turn crash. They've thrown some water down at the first turn. There's your crash reason. Look at the track now. You might have heard us talking about, you know, track conditions, muddy, ruddy, whatever. They have just been out and basically flattened the entire track. They've gone out there with a posse. New lines are being formed right now, not in that part. They've got some deep ruts. However, these guys are developing new lines. So it's a fresh track mostly for all of these riders.
Now, for those of you that haven't been following the off-season so closely and what's happened here with Dean Ferris, if you just quickly point out the 100% hole shot, of course, goes to the 111 of Dean Ferris. The off-season races that Dean Ferris has been unbeaten, he has nearly hole shot every single race. Now, this is looking very dangerous for his competitors here in ProMX.
He's looking sensational at the moment. To be honest, at the first round of Wonthaggi, he looked a little bit out of sorts. Put these ruts underneath him, and he is a completely different man. On screen right now, we need to talk about this. That is Aaron Tanti, the current or defending champion. But he sits there behind Joel Evans. What a ride by Evans, the 81 machine. Now gets a pass made against him. However, great start to the day. And now we see Tanti starting to work towards Todd Waters.
Now, Danny, I'm going to say Jed Beaton's moved his way up now to 8th place, so I don't believe that was him that went down. I think it's fairly safe to say that that was Kyle Webster, who is out of our top 25 at the moment.
And even Luke Clout, well, we saw him down there, so they've got a lot of work ahead of him. Clout bumps himself up into 15th place, so a lot of work ahead, all of them. Duffy's back there in 24th, and you're right, we're still actually looking to see where the other Honda rider is on our scoring. We can't see him anywhere, actually.
But we'll try to bring you guys up to speed with that as soon as we find out. Danny Ham's feverishly looking through our riders list. 33rd, right, okay, so clearly it was Kyle Webster that went down in that first turn crash.
Even Beaton at this point in the race, what's this, the third lap or the second lap? Third lap maybe that they're on. There is Beaton on screen. He's a long way back still, so he had to be even deeper out of that first turn, maybe in around 20th. He's made a lot of passes now. He's got himself up into that position, but he's got so much work. One of the fastest riders we saw on track, but remember, they did them fast lap times when there was a track there. There was ruts everywhere. So now they've got a new track. They have to relearn how they get around here quick.
So just a little bit of an update. Our last lap around 146 for Dean Ferris. Nobody else is on the same planet. 149 for Matt Moss, 149 for Kirk Gibbs. Let's watch this Honda replay here going into turn 1.
Well, the crash has probably already happened. There we go. There is number 8. Yeah, just sliding out the inside. So a lot of the riders all getting caught up in that, the wetness of that first turn. Caught them out. Oh, look at Tanti, wasting no time at all. Unable to do the step up, but gets past Todd Waters.
And that will move him up into 4th place there.
Tanti, in his time, has done quite a lot of laps around this circuit and also probably the practice track just on the other side of the hill. So the conditions of the surface, he'll be very familiar with it, because we see Metcalf to the inside as they launch up towards this big triple step up.
Danny, just a quick mention and a shout out to Matt Moss, who's come fresh off a Supercross track and slotted himself straight into 2nd place. So you know he hasn't been doing the outdoor training that these guys have been doing and not as familiarized with an outdoor track. So what an incredible job for him to slot straight up into 2nd place here.
Hey, have a look at Metcalf's bike there. The second one in line, his right hand. Look at the hand guard.
Yeah.
It's been smashed down, whether that's from a crash, but that would be, his leg would be hitting that in corners if he's had got his leg up high enough. That'd be very off-putting.
147 for Dean Ferris, so he's just dropped 1 second off the time, and Matt Moss with a 148. We've also got Tanti back there in 4th place with a 148. So the guys starting to pick the pace up ever so slightly, but they need to keep tabs on Ferris because he is almost 8 seconds out now.
These conditions just suit Ferris down to the ground as we see Beaton now moving his way onto the back of the Husqvarna rider of Todd Waters, the 47 machine there on the left, going into this right. The inside line, very good if you can get it right. However, that outside still slingshots quite nicely into this long left-hand turn. It's actually a double apex, and And these guys have only just started getting up over the top of this, and even still, a 450 stretching to try and make that jump clear. Oh, mistake.
Big mistake there from Todd Waters, and will that allow Jed Beaton around? It does. Super slingshot around the outside there from Jed Beaton, who's on fire at the moment. Now, our Thor MX1 Moto #1, 25 minutes plus a lap duration, Danny. The second moto later this afternoon for these guys is a back-to-back. Each of the back-to-backs, 13 minutes plus a lap. Let's have a look at this Honda replay.
So there was
the pass.
Yeah, the mistake, just a small mistake by Waters there, and that has allowed Beaton to capitalise on that straight away. It's a very difficult position to be in. Oh, look at this.
You called it, Danny, a completely different line, and you need to get up on them and make the pass immediately.
Which he has done with perfection.
What
Moss.
a move.
Moss a little messy through that section, and that's just allowed Gibbs to pounce on that position. So what a turn here for Kirk Gibbs. We saw him in practice. He looks super strong. Moss looks a little bit tight. Something's not right there.
And Tanti just needs to pounce, doesn't he? Because he's just been embroiled in this nice little battle with Kirk Gibbs, and he's just watching Gibbsy start to stretch away.
So Moss there, potentially, like we said, like you said, I should apologise, he hasn't been out training motocross. It's one thing to do supercross. It is a completely different kettle of fish when we try and do these big, long motos in motocross, especially with the heat. It's going to be a tough day for him as we see Tanti pulling up the side. Oh, both riders getting very close there in the air. Tanti needs to make this pass.
Fantastic ride so far from these guys, and Dean Ferris, 13 seconds now. Let's see what Kirk Gibbs can do now. Here we go, Aaron Tanti's made the pass, a little bit of a twitch into the corner, but no problem whatsoever. Clears the vision, and now he needs to set sail after Kirk Gibbs. I was just about to say, Danny, looking forward to seeing what Gibbsy can start to do with Dean Ferris's lead now that he's got clean air all the way up to the leader.
So he matched his, or almost matched his lap time the last time around. Kirk Gibbs very fast, but 12 seconds back. He needs to be cutting out a second a lap. And you know Ferris is a smart rider. He can maintain those leads when he has it. And after all of this, very quietly in the background, Jed Beaton has just snuck up to the back wheel of Moss. He is moving forward at a quick pace.
Well, Danny, I was just about to say the only other rider on the track to be in the 147s other than our leader, Dean Ferris, is Jed Beaton back there in 5th place. And he's looking smooth. It's looking like he's doing it fairly easily.
So our riders are almost half race distance here in the Thor MX1 Moto #1. And this is where the heat, the fatigue will start to set in for all of these riders. Let's head down to Kate.
Yeah, just an update on Jed Beaton. He actually used the bathroom after the sighting lap and got back on the bike with the 5-second board out. So that's probably why he is where he is. He's not up as far as we thought. He didn't get caught in that turn 1 mess.
Wow, have you heard of that before?
Wow.
That's different. That is leaving it to the very last minute. Man, the hydration he must have trying to be ready for this race. I'll tell you what, I'm impressed with Moss. Although he dropped back, he hasn't dropped off the back of Tanti, or has Tanti had an issue?
Yeah, I'm just trying to look ahead of Tanti to see how far. No, Tanti's had a little bit of a mistake because he was edging up closer to Kirk Gibbs. He's definitely had some kind of an issue. Whether he went off track for a second or he come together with another rider, or maybe he got cross-rutted. But have a look at the pressure that Beaton is putting onto the back of Matt Moss.
Do you think Moss might have done a breather, a couple of laps, just to regroup when you don't ride motocross in these kind of conditions? Is that... No, I don't think that's one of our
leaders.
When you aren't just comfortable at these kind of conditions, you can quite easily pump up. Maybe he took a breather, we're only speculating, maybe he took a breather for a couple of laps, learnt the lines that these riders in front of him have been using, tried to get a little bit more comfort, and he definitely looks a little better at the moment.
He's getting over that double there very nicely and doing double single off here. So, yeah, look, it could be any number of things, Danny. You know, Mossy is one of the rare riders that you can look at him and just think, oh, he's done, but then he comes back like he's just a bit of a warrior like that. The other thing is he may have picked up a line or two as Tanti came past. So it could be any number of things, but he certainly looks like He's in the groove at the moment. Without a doubt, I think Tanti had a little bit of an issue because he was almost back onto the rear end of Kirk Gibbs. Right, well, a little bit of an insight here into the first part of our Thor MX1. We've still got plenty more action to go. Stick around. Welcome back to the Penrite Oils ProMX Championships, brought to you by AMX Superstores. We're here at Appin. Let's give some props also to Kirk Gibbs, who's just logged himself a 1:48, so noticeably faster than all of those behind him, only 1 second off the pace of Ferris, and he's doing it with a radiator shroud just flapping in the breeze and no goggles. So it'll be very interesting to see going into the second moto for these guys, for MX1, which is of course back-to-back, 2 13-minute plus a lap motos, back-to-back with a 10-minute gap between. Let's see how Kirk Gibbs goes there. It's going to put a lot of emphasis on the starts, which could spell more disaster for everyone when it comes to Ferris. He's clearly got his starts on the A-game.
It's not just the fact that, you know, he's riding around with no goggles, and if he comes up on another rider, then it's going to be a challenge for him. Think about if you were to stick your head out of a window of a moving car like a dog, how hard it is just to look out there with the wind blowing in your eyes, drying your eyes out. Oh, Beaton, though, great line here. So Beaton has finally made that pass. But yeah, the small amounts of dust that are flicking up and then the wind blowing into his eyes as well, it's got to be extremely difficult for him just to circulate, especially at the pace he is doing. The 1:48 at the moment, he's really flying and doing a good job with no goggles.
It was so impressive. We were talking about it at the start of the moto when he came up on. Have a look at the Honda replay here of the pass that Jed Beaton just made on Matt Moss. Very well executed, but I tell you, someone who is looking super comfortable is Dean Ferris. 25-second gap now, and let's just watch him closely. Let's have a look at the body position, the line selection. It's just, it's all coming together here. He's strung together the perfect off-season, and I tell you, he'll be all smiles in that helmet at the moment. He'll just be looking forward to reaching that checkered flag, going back, cooling down. See the side-to-side movement and how agile he is on the bike, and that's half the reason that that bike's staying so nice and straight and not stepping out.
Just watching those forks too, how well it's tracking the ground, coming into the corners. A little bit of a front wheel lift there as he got on the acceleration nice and hard. But yeah, just keeping an eye on those forks, and that front wheel is planted very well going into these corners. A big advantage. When you can set your bike up well and you're comfortable with it, confident, you can push yourself to those limits. And right now he's doing it so smoothly.
And I think one of the other things we need to bring into consideration, Danny, is a confident Dean Ferris is a dangerous Ferris, right? So his competitors, they don't want to let Ferris get a couple of wins under his belt at national level at these races, because he just grows, you know, in confidence, in self-belief, and then all of a sudden he becomes even more dangerous.
You'd say the same thing with this guy right here. I got to talk to Cole Blunden before we started, the KTM manager oversees everything in KTM Motorsport, and he said, yeah, very impressed with the way that Kirk Gibbs was, even in the pole shootout earlier on, putting down those sprint laps. He's one of those riders that likes to go out there and continue to motor around.
Ooh, bit of a mistake there.
A little mistake, but still well within his control. And yeah, it said very, very strong, so they were very happy. Again, that radiator shroud off-putting. Have a look at his I think I thought I saw his fuel line cap on there flapping around as well. Maybe I saw something else, but yeah, everything just bouncing around on that bike. So off-putting.
It will be great after this event if we get the opportunity perhaps for Kate to ask the question as to how did this happen? Did he just tip it in that hard into a left-handed run that the left-hand radiator shroud acted like a scoop or a shovel and just wrenched it back? Or did he have some kind of drama out there on the track? Either way, he's made the most of the opportunity. Coming out of the Penrite left-handed turn. Tidewater's on screen at the moment. We haven't seen too much of him at the moment, but he's in the top 5. A solid 5th place at the moment. Finds himself 47 seconds behind the race leader.
That's got to be hard to grasp. But the thing is, with a track like this, there's days when you're out on the track as a racer, sometimes you just don't gel with the track, so you've got to do the best you can. and get the best points you
There's
can.
a lot of smoke coming from the back of Brett Metcalf's bike there, Danny.
That's a weird spot too. It was from behind the boot. It wasn't underneath like you expect with a radiator or something like that. It was quite high. So I'm not sure where that smoke is originating from.
To me, it looked like exhaust, perhaps. But let's just keep our eyes peeled and see if we can see it again. White smoke coming out of the exhaust tends to eventually be terminal for the motor. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's a coolant thing, but
it's quite high. It's in the top of the engine area or just behind the boot there. So unsure exactly what that is. The 28 there, Cooper Holroyd, he is back there in 13th place, having a good battle with the 440 machine. Not too sure which one that was, but Holroyd.
Yeah, we're on our last lap now, Danny, so 25 plus a lap, as we said, the duration here, and we are on our last lap, so we're almost 30-second gap now for this man on the 111 Yamaha machine. 111, good number that, Danny? You're a big fan of that?
Yeah, I always used Ferris's number. Man, I would be interested to hear whether he expected that he would have this kind of lead at the end. I don't reckon he would. Maybe a small lead, yeah, a comfortable lead, but 30 seconds.
It's just one of those races where from the drop of the gate to the checkered flag, everything has just come together. Just weaving his way through the lapped riders, come past Regan Duffy there, who I'm certain had some kind of drama, or I believe was involved in that first turn pile-up. Hope he's okay. But it is all about this guy at the moment. He hasn't slowed down. He's not just going, hey, I've got a 30-second lead. I'm just going to ride this thing in. His last lap was a 1:48, and he wants to finish with a good one.
He's the only one in the 40s. Everyone else is 50 plus and high 50s as well. So what a ride it has been for the 111 machine as he wakes his way around the final couple of turns. The privateer Brisbane Yamaha rider has done it in Moto #1 with a win. Dean Ferris, well done. What a superb ride out of him.
Fantastic ride from the Queenslander. He's come out of retirement and his first race back at national level. Nice fist pump of the handlebars. Awesome job to Dean Ferris. Kirk Gibbs makes his way through with a well-deserved second place. It's a little ways back, but all kinds of stuff hanging off the side of his bike. He's got to be happy with this, the factory KTM rider coming through, and he will take the checkered flag in second place. All right, let's take a look at the Thor results. MX1 Moto #1, of course, Dean Ferris, 111 taking the win. Kirk Gibbs back there in second place. Aaron Santi rounding out the top three from Jed Beaton and Todd Waters.
Dean Ferris, what a win. You went back to your pre-season settings and I think it was the right decision because you just won with a 30-second lead. Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I put in some heaters for the first 3 laps and I didn't look at my board, and then when I finally looked at it, there was plus eight seconds. So I calmed it down a little bit and just kind of cruised around, and I still seemed to pull out like a second a lap every lap. So, and then there was somewhere near the end, I pulled out like 4 seconds. So I was just ticking off my laps. I felt comfortable. It was great that I had some extra speed to burn because the amount of lappers that I caught here, I was able to just take another line and get by them. They didn't really bother me. So, yeah, big thanks to Brisbane Motorcycles Yamaha. It was a good ride. Thank you.
Well done, Dean.
Well, what a win for Dean Ferris. Fantastic job on the Brisbane Yamaha machine. The privateer showing what he's made of, Danny.
Yeah, man, that is a statement right there. Just take a look at the lineup for the Thor MX1 Moto #2. Dean Ferris, Jed Beaton, Kirk Gibbs, Carl Webster, Aaron Tanti, Matt Moss, Brett Metcalf, Harwood, Todd Waters, and Luke Clout are the top 10 that went into this one. It is absolutely boiling in here, Lee. We are getting a little bit of a cool towel on the back of the neck right now. We're trying to keep these temperatures down, but I can't even think how bad it must be for these riders on the line right now.
A little bit of special attention here from the lovely ladies at the MacArthur Motorcycle Club. Thanks for hooking us up.
As we get set for this one, roll down the start line. There is Regan Duffy right next to Luke Cloud. Yes. Kirk Gibbs has a fresh pair of goggles on. Tanti, all the boys winding those clutches forward.
Back-to-back motos, 13 minutes plus a lap each one. The drop of the gate for the first of the back-to-backs. Here we go.
Will we see a clean run through? It looks like, is that Moss? It looks like a Moss
looks like
style.
Moss. That looks like, no, it's Dean Ferris. And Aaron Tanti back in second place. Luke Cloud in third. Trying to pick up that other rider there. Is that
Webster.
Webster in 4th, and then it looked like Beaton in 5th. So sprint speed is the key right now. Let's see who can launch out early in this one and knock down some quick laps. Just looking back through the rest here, Moss is back there in 8th, Metcalf in 11th as they cross the first.
100% whole shot to Dean Ferris.
Sorry, Lee, didn't mean to jump on top of you there, but yes, look at Cloud Beaton. Oh, this is good, heating up between these two already.
Now a much better start from the two Honda boys this time. Can they get in there and challenge with the trio at the head of the pack? Nice line from Kyle Webster, the only rider to miss that hook.
Down to the very inside there was Beaton on screen, the 96 machine of Kyle Webster.
Sorry, Danny, Kirk Gibbs down in 14th place. Not the start we were hoping for the factory KTM rider.
Yes, after the first sector, that's where he sits. We're about to cross over for the second sector. We'll see if he has climbed up a few more places, but definitely not the start he wanted. 153 machine there, Hamish Harwood, another good start as well. So he sits back there. Moving forwards too. He is really moving at the moment.
I think more to the point, it looks like Kyle Webster's just riding a little bit tight at the moment. Jed Beaton has stretched out and pulled away from his teammate ever so slightly. So I think it's a case of these opening laps. Sometimes you find your flow straight away. Other times, you know, you're trying to find what line you're going, you make a mistake, and then all of a sudden you tighten up.
Joel Evans on the 81 machine there. He sits in behind them guys as well as Metcalf. So good start by Evans. Has got himself into a good position as we look to the lead. Oh, there, yellow flag's down.
Out. Who?
That's a leader.
Oh,
it's gone down.
Dean Ferris. Oh, and again gone down. The fairy tale return to racing has not gone the way he would have liked. Now, let's remember, 13 minutes plus a lap for these back-to-backs. We've got 10 minutes plus a lap to go. Aaron Tanti now has the lead.
So, Lee, what's now the mindset for Dean Ferris? We saw how fast he was. 30 seconds win over everyone else in Moto #1. His speed was exceptional. Can he throw down these kind of lap times again? Let's look at the replay here. Into the corner, I suspect. Oh, the back wheel kicked out.
Yeah.
Oh, and then back.
Okay. Oh, and that was a big knock to the head.
And he got cleaned up by his bike as well.
Yeah, he got a big hit there. Now, he's backing up. We need to look closely and see if he's rung his bell during that crash. But I just would like to point out, are we going to see a pass here? Oh, ever so close to tagging the back of the KTM rider there. We just saw the yellow flag out. It wasn't any... Whoa! Lapped rider just playing Mario Kart there, just throwing blocks up. Now, Ferris got a good line here where he cuts back underneath.
How quickly he turned that around. He was back instantly. He's back onto the back wheel. Gibbs not giving it up just yet. Will he get to the inside here, though? They up and over this jump here. Another pull of that tear off. They must be still getting, the roll-offs. Oh, Gibbs with a mistake. That's allowed Ferris up to the inside. So the pressure, too much for Gibbs. Ferris gains another. This is going to be very interesting at the end of this with points.
Yeah, it is. Like we said, it really is going to make a huge difference how many places he can make up. Oh, that was so close to a monumental crash going into that first part of the corner.
So it looks like he just missed the very inside rut that he had planned to get. A little lock up at the front brake, trying to make it. And unfortunately for him, he has lost that position. So back to the front of our field here. There is the top of screen, Aaron Tanti, Clout there on the #4, and then Beaton only a second back. So Lee, mindset on this one. How do they play it out? Do they conserve their energy? Do they just ride this one out and try and throw it all on the line the next time? Or are they going to go as hard as they can and then just see where they end up for Moto, or the second part of Moto #2?
Well, extremely good question, and I think you've got three completely different mindsets. You've got Luke Clout, who's just so stoked to be up the pointy end of the field at the moment. He's got something to prove. If he can edge a little bit closer, he does have a 1:45 under his belt that last lap. He was the fastest out of the top three that last lap around. So, will he put on some kind of a charge here now into the back of his teammate, Aaron Tanti, last year's champion in this MX1 category? And will Jed Beaton be able to shake off a little bit of that tightness? He's been looking really good today.
Yeah, if he is tight, it doesn't show too much at the moment. Maybe that was just the talk after the first moto. Landing short like that, though, that's a great way to tighten up when you pull up a little short on a jump that you probably should be getting over a little bit more comfortably than that. It certainly is not a great feeling pulling up short like that. So hopefully everything is all good for Aaron Tanti up front. He still maintains 2 seconds, dealing with a lot of these lapped riders.
Now, a rider that we haven't really spoken too much about also is Kyle Webster, number 96, on the Boost Mobile Honda. He's only 3 seconds behind Jed, and he's also logged himself a 145, as you're pointing out, Danny. Good pickup there. So the form and the tightness that we saw in those first couple of laps, there's not many riders that can ride through that and come out the other side, and Kyle Webster's one of them.
Yeah, well, we just saw him on the back end of that shot. There is Kyle Webster right there. In fact, he was the fastest rider on track the last lap around. So
well, have a look at him now. He just looks like a different rider, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's blasting his way through these lapped riders. You can see Beaton there in front of him, but he also knows that he's got Harwood behind him. Harwood's quite a long ways back, but he is trying hard to get forwards. We got on the 23 seconds left on the clock, so these guys have got 2 more laps ahead of them. There is Beaton there in 3rd place, the 14 machine on the Honda, still trying to make his way up to Clout. Last lap around, Tanti lost a little bit, a 48.2 compared to a 47.4 for Clout. So potentially 2 laps to go, we may see Clout close that gap down.
Yep, time clock has just ticked down to 0, so next time Aaron Tanti comes around, he will receive the last lap board. Now, Dean Ferris has edged his way to within 2 seconds of Hamish Harwood. If he can get Harwood and get up into a top 5, that's about as far as he's going to get. Kyle Webster is an absolute eternity down the track. So Tanti from Clout, Jed Beaton in 3rd, Webster 4th, Harwood rounding out the top 5. We're on lap 8 of 9.
Keep an eye on our 3rd place of Beaton on the 14 machine. Although he's tight, if he is tight, he looks so smooth at the moment, just perfecting these lines. Tanti, though, he's been lonely out front. He's got that small gap over everyone else. We haven't spoken too much about him, except for the fact that he is sitting up there in the lead. But he does look comfortable right now. These track conditions are tough. His ruts are rock hard now by this point of the race. Oh, he's got to choose something different here. There's 2 riders down on the inside.
You would have to think, though, that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th will be dealing with that same incident. So another lap down, and by rights, our last lap board should have just come out. A little step sideways for Tanti. 1 more lap to go for the CDR Yamaha Monster Energy rider. So many wins and a championship last year for 2022. This will be his first opportunity to take a race win here for 2023.
Confirmed there is last lap. Tanti works his way into this right-hander before he steps down into this long left-hander that we've seen a lot of riders trying to source a good line. There's no real fantastic lines through there. Up and over the step up, much cleaner that time around. Certainly a better feeling. You've got to think, Lee, that these riders now know they're at the end part of this race. They just want to ride this one out, try and conserve whatever energy they can at these temperatures, and maybe have another hit out at it in moto number 2.
Yeah, well, normally, you know my thoughts on these back-to-backs. I prefer the big, longer races where there's nowhere to hide. But on a day like this, 39.1 degrees, our weather is telling us now on the monitor. You know what it's like when you have to go from riding. You already feel hot. When you stop, it's like you got hit by a sledgehammer of heat. So for these guys, they have to go straight back to the start line. They can't go back to their air-conditioned race transporters. They have to remount for another race.
Confirm with me or deny, whichever way you want to go. I feel it's harder for these guys to stop and then go in these kind of conditions.
Absolutely. Today,
so much harder.
Today, that is the case without a doubt, Danny, for sure. Let's follow him through out of the last corner. Checkered flag comes out and race win. What a fantastic job for Aaron Tanti. His teammate Luke Clout comes through in 2nd place. Jed Beaton for 3rd, followed by his teammate Kyle Webster in 4th.
These guys will be doing everything they can to try and get as cool as they can before they make their way back to the start line. There is Ferris coming around to complete his race. He will come across in 5th after that pretty large crash. Quick look over the shoulder. Now, the clock has already started counting down.
10 minutes from the moment the race winner crosses the finish line, Danny.
So he is going to get some extra time back on the start line. There goes Moss now.
Down. We're off to a quick commercial break. Do not go anywhere. When we come back, the second of the back-to-backs. Welcome back to the Penrite Oils ProMX Championships, brought to you by AMX Superstores. We've just had the first of our MX1 back-to-backs. We have got another one about to come. We are in the starters' hands. These guys are ready to go.
Yeah, it hasn't been a very long turnaround, but they have the board up, ready to go. So one rider there just putting the goggles on the last minute. Gates are about to drop. We're about to get the final race underway.
Tanti jumped out exceptionally well out of the gate. So just try to pick, is that another Dean Ferris hole shot? It is. What a massive hole shot. Jed Beaton this time. Very close there in 2nd place.
Tanti Clout also up there. Oh, a little bit of a come together for a few riders.
Todd Waters, I believe, with the blue jersey, just stepped out sideways coming out of that second part of the first turn.
Good start, good clean start. The dust flying here at Appin. There is Moss just
big
next
jump.
to Clout.
Clout just making a pass on Matt Moss, launching off the last jump there with the triple.
So these places are mixed up a lot. So this Olympic scoring is going to be interesting. We're going to do the best we can to try and figure out how they place as they go through. Is a look at the 100% hole shot for the second part, moto number 2, of course.
3 from 3.
Ferris, man, and not just 3 from 3. 3 from 3, absolutely clear of everyone else.
Yes.
What starting technique he's got going, and that bike is a rocket ship out of the gate. So we see Tanti now dropping down there in 3rd place. Rolls reversed here as he sits back there in 3rd. Oh, mistake by Beaton, though.
Yeah, big mistake there as he has a look over the right shoulder. Don't look right, look left, because Tanti is all over the back of you and he wants to get up and battle with his fellow blue bike rider, but Jed Beaton has different plans on that. I'm going to have a look and try to assess these points, because Beaton has been exceptionally consistent throughout every drop of the gate so far.
So 3-2 for Beaton. Hang on, let's look at this. So watching the background, Beaton to bounce out of this. Little bit of a step out, so the back end just stepping out over the top of the rut that he was sitting in. Looks over the right shoulder here. In fact, he's on the left. Nice, clear space.
Straight through it.
Looking at the lap times the last time around, and this is interesting. 1:44.5 for our race leader, 1:44.7 for Jed Beaton. So he has matched the times, 1:45 neat for Aaron Tanti, and also a 45 for Clout. So the times are still there. Ferris isn't just checking out at the moment. He is creeping away. He's opened it up to 1.4, but certainly not like we saw in Moto number 1 today.
Well, I think Moto number 1, when we got to speak to him at the end of the race, when Kate got to have a bit of a chat, he commented, I dropped the hammer for the first few laps, then I relaxed a bit and was still pulling away. So clearly in that first of the back-to-backs, he tried to drop the hammer and he paid the price. So are we seeing a slightly more calculated Dean Ferris here, perhaps not trying to, ruin everyone in those first few laps?
Or is it the fact that we are at a very difficult part of the day with the second part of this race, and dropping the hammer is just that much harder to do? Only he will know, of course. We only speculate, but he is certainly opening up that gap now. 2.7 over the rest of the field. Jed Beaton there, still over Aaron Tanti, and Clout here in 4th. He looks strong at the moment. He may come up there and contend, and if he gets up there, passes his teammate, then that'll throw it all around once again.
Yeah, well, we all know Luke Clout's so dangerous once he gets a bit of confidence on board and he starts to believe in himself, and he's got that solid race result under his belt from the first of the back-to-backs.
Ferris just dealing with one of the lapped riders.
There would have been a big yell come from the helmet.
I heard Ferris yelling in qualifying this morning. You know, when he's getting around the track. There's nothing bad against the other riders. It's just giving the awareness that the faster riders are coming through. Sometimes that's all it takes, just for these riders to be aware that they are about to get a lap down and to not cut across in front of them and cause an issue. But like you've said many times, Lee, these guys are out there, they're trying to run their own race, and they're actually in survival mode as well at the moment.
So just on the bottom of our screen, rider 102, Matt Moss, has retired from the race. So whether he's feeling the heat or had some kind of a bike issue, we're not quite sure. But nonetheless, I must say, you have to give credit to Mossy for not only, he's come off the back of 250, Supercross, and the middle of winter in America. You could not drop yourself into much polar opposite conditions here.
So 2 more laps to go in this one. The clock will expire. The next lap around, they will get the last lap board. Is Tanti here putting on a bit of a late charge, or is Beaton dropping down the pace a little bit? The lap times tell us there's about 1 second difference between these guys, with Tanti being the winner out of those 2 on the last lap. But it's a big gap, 3 seconds between them.
Well, we're still in the early stages of this lap, so basically close to 2 laps still to go. Plenty of time. Anything can happen here. We saw how badly Ferris got caught up with a lap rider just before. That can happen to any of these riders. So once again, Jed Beaton pulling that nice tall gear on the 450. He's so suited to the 450, being such a tall, strong rider, but his technical and calculated technique just makes it look so effortless.
Hard times out there, as we've said many times with this heat, and you can see the intensity has just dropped out of these riders. They are in survival mode right now. Beaten up and over, looking ever so smooth. Just simply doesn't have the answer for Ferris today. There's Todd Waters, who sits back there in 5th. So this is another strong ride by Waters. As the day gets tougher and tougher, he seems to shine more and more.
Yeah, one thing you can count on is Todd Waters will never throw in the towel. He'll keep charging right the way to the end. And I guess the same can be said for Brett Metcalf and Kirk Gibbs, the older boys of the group. We saw the yellow flag flying there, and we just didn't quite catch who that was that's had a little bit of a trip off the side of the track.
Gibbs not too far behind Waters there, only about 2 seconds, as they're going to come around this time and receive the last lap board. So if something's going to happen, it's going to take quite an effort for Gibbs to get up there. He's pretty close though, won't take too much to be up there.
All right, well, our top 3 have received the last lap board. So if anyone wants to mount one remaining challenge, it is now. This is your final opportunity to do it. 7.7 second gap back to Beaton from Ferris, and then a further 3.5 seconds back to Tanti. And that is where things can change. And I guarantee you Ferris will be having a little bit of a look over his shoulder to see, is that Jed Beaton still behind me back in 2nd place?
Through the right-hander, down this part of the hill for the last time. This is a part of the track that Ferris was so strong, making those passes early on in this moto. Through the Pirelli left-hand turn for the final time. Up and over the triple, he looks comfortable, doesn't he? He had that one moment in the first part of this second moto, but I don't feel that he has looked like he's been out of control. Bike's danced around, but I don't feel he's been out of control any other stage that we've seen him on TV.
And he looked angry at himself when he made that mistake. When he got back on and started riding, you could just see the anger oozing out of him as he was just trying to round up riders left, right and center. Well, we're getting to the latter stage of this lap here, which means it is checkered flag time, tipping it into the chicane, and the Alpine Stars right-hander for the final time, tied on 45 points with Aaron Tanti, but it will be Dean Ferris on the Brisbane Motorcycles Yamaha, the privateer. The return from retirement is complete, and he takes victory in his first national event. What an amazing job here for Dean Ferris, Danny Ham.
Fantastic, yeah, and it's a great way to set up the rest of this championship as well. These boys are going to go back after this and try to regroup, think about how they can get up there and challenge for the lead. They've got a lot of work ahead of them, but there is some fast riders back here that I feel can come to the call on that one and put up a big fight.
I'm going to say still some great points for Arantanti, tied on points with Dean Ferris on what was not his perfect day. Jed Beaton, I think, is the sleeper of this series. I think he is the one that could unleash a little bit of extra speed. He just looked like he was doing it pretty easy to me.
We saw it last year with the riders. They settle themselves into the championship. It takes a couple of rounds, but once they do, they figure out exactly where they need to be sitting, who's the strong, who's the fast one. Certainly isn't answered after round one, but certainly has set up quite the championship that we see in front of us. As we look at the Thor MX1 results, of course, Dean Ferris led the way. Jed Beaton, Arantanti, Luke Clout and Todd Waters are your top 5.
Kirk Gibbs back there in 6th place, Cole Webster, Hamish Harwood, Jai Walker and Brett Metcalf rounding out the top 10.
Evans Holroyd with a good result there in 12th. As we look back there in 16th place. Duffy back in 19th. So some big names also back there. We expect to see a little bit more out of them as they progress through this championship and start to get their strengths coming on more and more.
Let's go down to Kate.
In P1, Arantanti, a pretty good start to your championship campaign, defending that red plate.
Yeah, the day started off pretty rough for me. The first moto was challenging. I almost went down in that pile-up, so I was mid-pack and had to charge my way back through to 3rd. And then, yeah, sorted out my starts in the back-to-backs and, you know, almost got the whole shot in the first one, and Dean made the mistake and I just capitalised and got my first win of the year, round 1, and yeah, just rode consistent in that last one. The track was pretty skatey and gnarly. I already knew where I had to finish to get the overall, so I was just patient and, yeah, happy to walk away with the red plate, and massive thanks to my team for the massive effort today. It was super hot.
Yeah, great. Well done, Aaron. You go and get under some shade. Boys, back to you.
Well, what a fantastic job from Arantanti, the CDR Monster Energy rider, taking the overall victory here, Danny Ham.
Great day. Cannot wait to see the rest of this championship unfold.
Well, Appin, you certainly have delivered for round 2 of the Penrite Oils ProMX Championships, brought to you by AMX Superstores. On behalf of Danny Ham, Kate Peck and myself, Lee Hogan, thanks for your company. We'll see you next at Wodonga.